Hey there, this is the One Boom, and before making my month-in review for Black Ops 6, I decided to work on this shorter video just based on some comment trends I've been seeing on my videos, because a lot of you guys have questions about headshots and how getting 100 headshots seems impossible, so I thought I'd share some best strategies so you have an easier time getting the military camos on just about every gun in the game. It's a little daunting looking at the fact that there's 7 assault rifles right now, and each one requires 100 headshots. That's shooting 700 people in the head in a game that doesn't really have a very high headshot multiplier. Treyarch is rewarding your accuracy with camos instead of rewarding your accuracy with faster kills a lot of the time. In fact, most of the guns in the game don't really seem to be affected by headshots at most ranges. So whether you've been playing COD for 20 years, or this is your first time ever playing a Call of Duty game, I hope my tips are able to help you speed through your headshot camos at least a little bit more or a lot a bit more. Our first step is going to be positioning. On every map, we're going to have areas where we have chest-high cover that people are going to hold as a power position, as just a piece of cover that's, very common. And we don't want to have to be struggling to predict enemies all game. We don't want to be trying to react to every gunfight. There are some areas enemies are just bound to show up in, and better than that, when they show up, they're going to show up and hold still because they have cover. The trick is to aim at these covered places. If you're on controller, I recommend still strafing slightly left and right to activate your rotational aim assist because yeah, be a scumbag, but also it makes you just harder to hit on any platform. I mean, there are people that they get behind cover and they think that because they have cover in front of them, they can hold completely still, but that's gonna be a death sentence, especially if you're at a predictable piece of cover, because this is where people should be looking if they want to land headshots. The top Vorkuta head glitch, the Nuketown building windows, the bar on Skyline, or the staircases on Skyline. These are predictable places to wait for enemies, and when they show up, they're gonna hold still because they think they have cover, they think they're safe. So pre-aim these areas, get ready for enemies to be at them, and just shoot them in the head. Video over, right? No, there are things to consider here. So first things first, they're probably gonna be shooting back at you. So because of this, we need to be equipping the heavy stock. You could do the combat stock, which helps with both flinch resistance and aim walking movement speed, but honestly, the heavy stock is overkill enough to be worth doing. This is gonna drop down your flinch. Flinch doesn't really matter in the average gunfight most of the time, but in long range engagements and in engagements where you are aiming high, that flinch that can happen can really throw you off target. You can lose your gunfights. There have been so many times that without combat stock or heavy stock where I've started landing a headshot or two, and then I lose the gunfight because they flinch me off target. People think, well, the flinch isn't very high in the game, but when you're shooting high up on somebody and they're shooting at you, like, think about it. You have your recoil combined with the flinch that they're stacking on you. You are going to want that flinch resistance. People's reaction times on average in Call of Duty are high, and they are going to be shooting you while you're trying to go for these headshots 9 times out of 10. You should at least be ready for it. The other ways we can get ready for this is with the precision or lightweight foregrip. I was gonna say target laser because the target laser gives you more stability and it gives you just 0 idle sway upon aiming down sight. But the problem with the target laser is that it paints a laser where you're aiming, and we do want to wait for people to enter popular head glitches and pieces of cover. We don't want to deter any of them with the laser. So the lightweight and precision foregrip are going to help you with your idle sway. The precision foregrip is also going to help a little bit with horizontal recoil, which is nice because horizontal recoil will throw you off your headshot game really easily. But what you really don't want is idle sway. You don't want that idle sway taking you off target while you're pre-aiming cover. Again, this is about easy headshots, not the most exciting, super fun, awesome montage headshots. We're talking about easy headshots. And when we're pre-aiming cover, we want to be able to resist the flinch, as well as not worry about our sights bobbing around, because we have a lot less margin for error when it comes to aiming at the head. So flinch and idle sway are going to be big factors here, as well as kick reset and overall vertical recoil. So kick reset speed is something I've now talked about in 4 different videos. The kick reset speed in this game is kind of bugged. I did a whole video about it. I guarantee you should watch it. It'll be linked at the end of this video. Basically, when you fire your gun in fully automatic or in several bursts or spamming semi-auto, and then you let your sight recenter back down and you start firing again, the gun sometimes hasn't fully centered yet. So when you start firing, you actually start firing again into that old second larger recoil pattern. So it's inconsistent. So imagine you're going for headshots and you start firing at somebody and you miss a little bit. So you try to recenter your sight and start firing again. Well, you would want the recoil pattern to be identical to the last one, right? But if you're not using muzzle brake, you have a chance of your recoil pattern being off center. So you fire a burst of XM4, it veers slightly to the right, okay, predictable, you can handle that, and you keep firing, and then when it resets, it doesn't actually reset, and your next burst of ammunition goes slightly to the left instead of the right, and it throws you off your gunfight. So definitely run the muzzle brake if you're noticing inconsistencies when tap firing people in the head, especially with higher recoil weapons. Alternatively, instead of worrying about the kick reset speed, you could just mitigate the recoil altogether, and this kind of comes down to personal preference. If you're going for longer range headshot tap firing, or you want to be able to shoot multiple targets in the head without worrying about random recoil ruining your fun, then the muzzle brake. But if you are just going to be fighting one target at a time and you kind of just know when they're going to show up and you're going to be fighting them in very controlled engagements, the compensators are going to be really good because that vertical recoil is going to be very low, and the ported compensator does a little less vertical recoil magnitude control, but it helps with that first shot recoil, so your first shot isn't going to kick quite as high as it normally would. Something the muzzle brake also does, but the ported compensator is also just going to be really good at keeping recoil down under sustained fire. But I think if you're good at controlling vertical recoil and you have the precision foregrip on that helps with horizontal recoil, I feel like muzzle brake is better just for consistency's sake. This helps you get muscle memory, and in my opinion, shortening your recoil down is not always as important as creating consistency. On the topic of consistency, of course, we have to talk about barrels. What type of barrel should you be running? And this is a really easy question to answer. What range are you fighting at? If you are fighting at a really long range, then probably the long barrel. If you're fighting in a mix of close and long range, and it sort of depends on an engagement to engagement basis, maybe the reinforced barrel or no barrel attachment at all. When it comes to the CHF barrel, you have to ask yourself by looking at the stats, how much does this increase my headshot multiplier, and will it actually help me in my maximum damage range? If it doesn't, in my opinion, it is not worth using because the recoil increase from using it is going to throw you off getting your headshots, and if it's not decreasing shots to kill at effective range, then there's really no point in utilizing it. On the Krieg C specifically here, you can see that the CHF barrel actually does reduce our shots to kill by 1 when using it because it takes our damage from 32 to 38, and at the 10 and 25 meter range for the dummies, we can get a 3-shot headshot, which is pretty strong and pretty good to use. I had really solid success with this barrel when going for headshots. The issue is that not every gun is like this. Some guns, when it increases the headshot multiplier, it really is only going to matter at like mid to long ranges, not in those initial important gunfights. So because of that increased recoil, again, if it's not lowering your shots to kill at 10 and 25 meters, and it's really only helping in weird engagements a bit farther out with headshots mixed in, then don't worry about it. But test it for yourself in the firing range so that you don't end up wasting an attachment slot on it. One thing that is really interesting to note here is that the Jason Armory 2x, the Willis 3x, and the Prismatech 4x do reduce your recoil gun kick. Oh, as well as the Dobrike 4x, I think is how you pronounce that. Either way, it reduces your gun kick level, and that can be really good for landing headshots on head glitchers farther away at like more mid-range. If you've been sleeping on the 2, 3, and 4x sights, don't, because they can actually help a lot. And if you're playing hardcore mode for headshots, I'd actually highly recommend these because it makes it much easier to acquire somebody's head and pop it at a distance. Because in hardcore, you can get away with setting your gun to semi-auto and then just tapping people in the head across the map. So definitely give these optics a try. They are worth using. They do hurt your aim down sight speed by 10%, but they reduce your recoil gun kick by 30%, and that is no small number. Also, don't forget to run recoil springs if you are having trouble landing headshots, because recoil springs tightens up both vertical and horizontal recoil. Of course, those are good things to tighten up when you are trying to shoot somebody in the head. And the last thing here is that for as long as I can remember, T. Martin was the first video that I ever saw say this, but in 2012, people started realizing that the laser sight was good for headshots, because walking up to an enemy and hip firing at their upper chest, neck, and head area landed pretty consistent headshots. Because when you're barrel stuffing people with a tight hip fire spread, technically their head is the biggest target. And if you're playing on the face-off maps, or if you're playing on Nuketown and staying inside the enemy spawn building, or you're just staying in close quarters in general, I actually do recommend trying out this tactic of running a hip fire laser and spraying up towards people's head. Lower rate of fire weapons might not have the same luck with this, but I've been doing this for years and it feels pretty effective. To recap everything here, hip fire at people's heads up close, recoil springs if you're missing shots, you want muzzle brake if you want consistency, you want compensator or ported compensator if you want ease, don't sleep on the 2, 3, and 4 times optics, use the headshot damage barrel if you can tell in the firing range that it makes an actual reduction in shots to kill, definitely use lightweight or precision foregrip, just to tone in that idle sway, because target laser, while it does help with idle sway, the target laser is going to let people know you're aiming at the cover you're going to be predicting at, and that's the last thing. Predict cover, learn the maps, get some game sense, play 10v10, and hold angles on people that are just playing to hold angles. Move your feet, by the way, when you're behind cover, because just because there's a wall in front of you doesn't mean I can't shoot you. You have to move a little bit. I'm fucking trying to kill you, for fuck's sake. Have some urgency. Oh, and there is one last step here. If you did stay till this point in the video, I can tell you really care about getting headshots, so I will give you, listener, viewer, who has stayed till this point in the video, the best tip I can give you. Practice. Go shoot bots in the head in a private match and practice. Try to practice in a low-stress environment so you can see yourself do it, see yourself succeed, and then go online knowing that you can do that, and trust me, it makes a world of difference. Unfortunately, none of these tips will matter if you are not willing to practice and get muscle memory and become comfortable with your mouse and keyboard or controller. If you're fucking around with your sensitivity settings and aim down sight stuff and you're messing with attachments every single match, you are not going to improve. Pick a select set of things and master it. Practicing with bad things is better than not practicing with good things, and so you want to practice with good things for optimal success, and that's the simplest way I can put it. Anyway, see you when I see you guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Goodbye.